What's the pleasure of the floor leader?
Mr. Speaker, may we request the Secretariat to flash where we are in the order of business. Thank you. We are on the 8th part of the order of business. First and second reading, may we request the Secretary General to read the title and the authors thereof.
Here's for the second reading. Committee report number. May we request the Secretary General to read the committee report number 2 for the information of this August body.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. On committee report number 2, submitted by the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management, Rev. BTA Parliament Bill number 54 entitled, An Act appropriating funds for the operations of the Bangsamoro government from January 1 to December 31, 2023 and for other purposes, authored by the government of the day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary status of this bill is it is a turn of the Committee on Finance to report out its report thereon. May we request the recognition of MP Ubayda Pakasem on behalf of the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management.
Honorable MP Attorney Ubayda Pakasem is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mr. Speaker, by the authority of the Committee on Finance and Budget and Management, Chairperson, Minister Edward Guerra, I, as one of the Vice Chairpersons of the CFBM, will be reporting Committee Report number 02, Mr. Speaker. We are submitting the Committee on Finance and Budget and Management this 20th of December regarding the Bangsamoro Transition Authority Bill number 54 as authored by the government of the day. We are recommending for approval with amendments, Mr. Speaker, this committee report. The Committee on Finance and Budget and Management, which was referred to the Committee on Finance, Mr. Speaker, as introduced by the government of the day, entitled An Act Appropriating Funds for the Operation of the Bangsamoro Government from January 1 to December 31, 2023 and for other purposes. The committee has considered the same and has the honor to report it back to this august body. Subcommittee reports in the Mother Committee with the recommendation, Mr. Speaker, that BTA Bill number 54, subject to amendments as shown in Annex A, summarized under. BTA Bill number 54, Bangsamoro Expenditure Program, Ministry, Agencies and Offices amounting to 68,081,976,386 with special purpose funds amounting to 17,277,339,301 pesos, totaling to 85,359,315,687 with net increase taken from the special purpose funds amounting to 2,034,111,681.66. The committee recommended BTA Bill number with the expenditure program for the ministry, agencies, and offices amounting to 70,116,088,067 pesos and 66 centavos. Now, the special purpose fund becoming 15,243,227,619 pesos and 34 cents, totaling to 85,315,687 pesos. The amendments on the special and general provisions and other amendments under Annex B be also adopted, Mr. Speaker. With the foregoing, a total of 85,359,315,687 is recommended for approval to BTA Bill number 54 with amendments as specified herein. Respectfully submitted by the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management Chairperson, four Vice Chairpersons, members, including ex officio, Mr. Speaker. We are respectfully submitting this committee report to this August body, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the adoption of the committee report of the Committee on Finance, Budget and
There is a
Management.
move to adopt a committee report number 54. It's duly seconded. The chair declares the same as approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the floor for the deliberations on committee report number 2.
Mr.
The
Chair,
floor is now open
Mr.
for deliberation.
Speaker,
Parliamentary inquiry. Bakit committee report number 2 yan? Ano yung number 1?
1 minute suspension, Mr. Speaker.
1 minute suspension. Session resume.
One minute suspension.
Before that, the period of interpellation of 1 minute suspension. Dapat, kuhan na.
We beg the indulgence of the Deputy Speaker. We will clarify that matter with the Secretariat, but if in the meantime, can we proceed with opening the floor for deliberations for the interpellations for the committee report as just reported out by MP Pacasem.
Committee report, deliberation, interpellation, and debate of committee report number 2 is now open for discussion.
Mr. Speaker, MP Joe Lorena wishes to be recognized as the first interpellator.
The gentleman from Sulu, MP Attorney Jose Lorena, is now recognized.
Thank you, colleague floor leader, for reminding me I should be here. Anyway, I have some very structural and policy question relative to the budget. My first question is, we have appropriated here 85 billion more or less. Am I correct, Mr. Speaker? More than 85 billion.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Is this the totality of our fiscal space for the bar?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the 85 billion includes all other sources of funds. This pertains to the block grant we regularly receive from the national government, amounting to 5% of the collection in the internal revenue taxes as well as the customs collection. Another part of the 85 billion is the share in our share in the income taxes collected within the BARM. The third source is the projected collection on the regionally imposed taxes based on the still subsisting ARMM revenue code. Other source are savings from the personal services, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Have we included appropriated funds which were not utilized for purposes of the computation of the fiscal space to
Yes,
determine the totality of the fiscal space for 2023?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the source of fund includes savings that we have generated from 2020 and 2021, Mr. Speaker.
Does this include the savings from the Special Development Fund?
Since the Special Development Fund is still effective, its validity is until December 31, 2022, the savings or projected savings are not included. However, the 85 billion includes our SDF for 2023, Mr. Speaker.
So you mentioned including the projected savings. May we know what is the projected savings for the SDF for 2023?
Mr. Speaker, just to clarify, what we included in the 85 billion is the savings generated from 2020 and 2021. This we also did in 2022 when we were appropriating, especially the savings on the personal services. As I have said, Mr. Speaker, we have not included the projected savings for the SDF. Since the validity of the SDF for 2020, 2021 and 2022 is until December 31. However, the SDF for 2023 is included in this 85 billion, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. But when we project also taxes that will be generated in the future. So we can also project the savings that we may have from all sources of revenue as appropriated in 2022. Am I correct?
Mr. Speaker, savings can only be realized when the validity of a certain appropriations is or validity expired. While we may project that as of today, however, we cannot include it yet as available source of fund because the appropriations allowing it to continue still continues, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. So the validity of the Special Development Fund until 2023 was premised on our resolution extending the validity of that Special Development Fund from 2022 December. Am I correct?
Mr. Speaker, it's not based on a resolution. It's based on appropriations we enacted last year, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, now, that being the case, since we have appropriated it, what will be the valid basis for the implementation of the SDF in 2023 when it is not included is it included, by the way, first in this Appropriations Act?
Mr. Speaker, the Special Development Fund for 2023 is classified as a line item in our appropriations or in our expenditure program. there are provisions citing or establishing the processes in which the programs, activities, and projects can be had through the SDF, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. But when we talk of the savings as projected or even from, is this the savings only in 2021 or in 2022?
2021 and 2022, Mr. Speaker. We cannot, again, Mr. Speaker, include the 2022 projected savings since the appropriations remains valid until December 31.
That's correct. But 2021 and 2022 will expire in 2022. What about 2020? Did we include that in our resolution?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Even in 2022, we included part of the savings, Mr. Speaker.
So the extension now covered for 3 years, 2020, 2021, and 2022 for the purposes of savings. Am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Would the passage of this report as submitted, this bill, not modify or even extinguish the provisions of all provisions provided for in the General Appropriations Act for 2021 and 2020 by own interest? Would the passage of 2023 negate or not negate 2022 for purposes of clarity and legal purpose? Would that not negate 2020? Because my understanding of a General Appropriations Act is the General Appropriations Act define all the expenditures to be covered by any government for the purpose of the current year. What about those previous? Although we have approved it, ratified, I must admit that we have a resolution. But would we be legally correct in not including in this Appropriation Act those that has already been in 2020 and 2021, which was already beyond the 2020, although we have extended it in 2023? That's for purposes of clarity. I just want to be informed, legally informed. Would that not negate 2020?
Mr. Speaker, can I have a clarification or a restatement of the question, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, I will clarify it. There is supposed to be a General Appropriations Act for 2021.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
There is also a General Appropriations Act approved for 2022. Am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Now we are passing a General Appropriations Act for 2023, meaning all the expenditures of this government for 2023 must be covered in the 2023 General Appropriations Act.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Now, but we are including, for purposes of our resolution, the General Appropriations Act of 2021 and 2022. Are we not violating the law?
Mr. Speaker, what is included in the 85 billion are the savings, meaning free space. They have no more accountability. They have no more specific purpose. So those are just included. We have not included projected savings whose validity are until December of this year, Mr. Speaker.
May I be clarified that whether all the projects that we are including for 2020 are already in the stages of implementation, are just to be implemented?
Mr. Speaker, since we have extended the 2020 appropriations as well as 2021 appropriations, this will give time for the ministries and offices to implement the programs as appropriated, Mr. Speaker. So there are programs funded under 2020 and 2021 and even 2022 that are still being implemented, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, thank you. Because my concern is we might be prolonging the implementation to give benefit for the non-implementation of some programs by our agencies, which would be detrimental to all of us for purposes of sound fiscal policy. That is my concern. Nonetheless, thank you for that, but I still have one other concern. And this is concern on the matter of the provision of the ball, impact of provision carried from Republic Act 1954, which in the implementation of programs, projects within the BAM should give preference and priority to residents and inhabitants of the region. Are we compliant to that in our budget?
MP Jose Lorena, please address the question.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. That's Mr. Speaker. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. That is my only question.
Yes.
Ano daw?
Can
The
you...
question is, in the Republic Act 1954, as well as in BOL, there is a provision. It says that that we should give preference to the residents or inhabitants of the BAM, which therefore includes the implementation of our programs and projects.
I
Now,
suppose, Mr.
my question is, in our programs, projects here, have we considered that particular provisions of law?
I suppose, Mr. Speaker, that the ministries and offices implementing certain programs are delivering the programs to how they're supposed to, Mr. Speaker. So by possibly observing that provision of the organic law, Mr. Speaker. With regards to the procurement, we have specified certain provisions, not just for 2023, but even as early as 2020 in our appropriations, citing or reiterating the need to observe the procurement law, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, and I hope that that provision of law should be incorporated to not only to the provisions of this General Appropriations Act, but even to shape a policy to all implementing agency to comply to that. Because the idea of this autonomy is to benefit our people. And if we the best our people of that opportunity, we are not circulating the money within the barn, but we are floating it outside. Many people in other places are saying, it's your port. You ask us to do this. You could have asked your industries to develop progress. That is my concern. I hope, and I thank you for that statement that you have considered this provision, and I hope there will be a general policy to all implementing agencies that where there are industries available in the region, mind you, the only difference to say it is that per JEP, but per JEP can be modified by us. We are a parliament. If that is the only reason, then we should adopt a policy that would allow our people to benefit from the implementation of programs and policies, because money circulated in our region will benefit our people, but money thrown out of the region will not benefit our region. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We note the manifestation observations, Mr. Speaker, and I hope this also becomes a reminder to heads of offices who are members of this parliament, Mr. Speaker. We also have to recognize, Mr. Speakers, that there are certain is definitely cannot provide our needs, Mr. Speaker. So this is a factor in the conduct of activities outside the autonomous region, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, next to conduct her interpellations is MP Baintan.
MP Lady from Maguindanao in Cotabato City, Engineer MP Baitan Pampatuan is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Majority Floor Leader. Full disclosure, I am a member of the Committee on Finance and Budget and Management, in fact, Vice Chair, one of the Vice Chair. But rest assured that what I'm going to ask was not decided on or discussed at the committee level. My first question, Mr. Speaker, is that, is there a provision under the Bangsamoro expenditure program that talks about modification of projects by the ministries, officers, and agencies? And if there are, may I request the Secretary General to flash on the screen the specific provision about modification, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, there is a specific general provision on the modification, Mr. Speaker. I am trying to find a particular section.
May we request the Secretariat to
May I
take
request,
of that particular provision so that it can be flashed in the screen? Because this is the subject matter of this discussion.
Mr. Speaker, it's found in section.
can you flash it on the screen so that everybody would understand what we are discussing,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker?
1 minute suspension.
Mr. Speaker, Section 58 provides for the rules on the modification in the allotment. Mr. Speaker, may I know, in layman's term, the exact translation of this provision with regards to a specific program or projects specified in the BEP, Bangsamoro Expenditure Program, and translated it into a performance indicator, the net effect of this provision to the provisions on the targets as well as performance indicators, Mr. Speaker. So first is, I want a layman's explanation of how this provision is being done by the ministries and offices.
Mr. Speaker, the rule on modification applies only within a specific program. Halimbawa, may isang programa, let's say, harvest yung na-mention, no? Halimbawa, anything about, let's say, GATS na lang, General Administrative Services. So, items can only be allowed to be modified if the objects are within a GAS. Halimbawa, of the GAS, merong
Pwedeng program yung sample natin. Kasi yung gas medyo may leeway tayo doon. But kung programa yan, may effect siya sa target.
Okay. I'll cite MSSC as an example na lang po. No? One of their programs is Bangsamoro Sagip Kabuhayan Program. Tapos this BSKP program has specific activity like, let's say, provision of the financial subsidy requiring training or requiring travel. So instead na i-pursue yung, let's say, traveling expenses, hindi na lang ipupursue, then imo-modify yung specific items for that to other purpose related to the provision of the financial assistance, Mr. Speaker. So the rule on modification says that if it is within a same program, then it can be made applicable, Mr. Speaker, wherein which the allotment issued within an activity or project will be allowed subject to the observance of the following rules. The head or office or minister for the change in the details of an activity or project without changing its nature and with the same operating unit, the change in the object of the expenditure within an allotment class, halimbawa PS, MOOE, or capital outlay, and MFBM in the following modifications from one allotment class to another, or from one operating unit to another, and within special purpose fund, and for the payment of Magna Carta benefits authorized under Section 43 here of Mr. Speaker. So this section, particularly on the rules and modifications in the allotment, Mr. Speaker, is also taken from the national GAA, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, is it not in a way or other altering what have been approved based on the report made by the Committee on Finance, specifying what is for PS, what is for MOE, what is for capital outlay? When we implement this specific provision of the law, it will modify in a way or other the allocation that has been approved by this Parliament, Mr. Speaker.
I think, Mr. Speaker, that does not hold true in this particular case, because what we are legislating, what we are allowing or authorizing are the different programs. Here, what we are modifying are the different activities within a particular program, Mr. Speaker.
No.
And this is taken also from the national government, Mr. Speaker.
No, Mr. Speaker, in the case of the national government, our setup right now as a parliament is entirely different from what is in the national. Here, we, at any given time, we can call the parliament for some readjustment, realignment of what has been approved by the parliament. But in the case of the national, they can just convene the Congress, the two houses for the revision of specific provision in the General Appropriations Act. My question really is, will it not diminish the power of this parliament, because we already sealed what is for PS, what is for MOE, what is for capital outlay. And by observing this specific section, we are actually altering that that power that was approved already by this parliament, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, in proper time, I have some proposed amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, again, this is while we are an autonomous region, Mr. Speaker, our budgeting process also necessitates the observance of the national guidelines on budgeting. And again, this is taken from the national GAA, Mr. Speaker. However, again, going back to the example, Mr. Speaker, on the Bangsamoro Sagip Kabuhayan program, which we have authorized through the appropriations law, Mr. Speaker, we have approved let's say, that particular program. However, through the modifications, we are allowing certain activities to be modified by the certain ministry, certain office, Mr. Speaker. So, in the modification, what we are allowing is just to change the activities within a particular program, Mr. Speaker, which I think is also compliant with the budgeting laws, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, may I restate my question, Mr. Speaker? We have at some point from 2020, 2021, 2022, modify one allocation intended for MOE and change it into capital outlay.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. In the case of Marawi Rehabilitation, originally there was no item on MOOE. However, in the implementation of the program, it was found out that an operating expense had to be provided for the MRP, Mr. Speaker. So with that, observing the rules on modification, we allowed the modification from capital outlay as originally classified as an expense into MOOE, Mr. Speaker.
See, Mr. Speaker, that's my problem actually, because we did the due diligence, especially at the committee level, as to the appropriations by item of expenditure and even object of expenditures, Mr. Speaker. And we are not informed actually of what are those changes. In fact, we just discovered during the budget deliberation that there were modifications, and surprisingly, there should be a process that informs the parliament, because whatever is written in the Bangsamoro expenditure program and later on becomes a General Appropriations Act, this is sealed by this parliament. And therefore, any change without any changes in that provisions, specific provisions of the General Appropriations Law, it is but necessary that the parliament should be informed and get its approval, Mr. Speaker. And by allowing this provision, Mr. Speaker, we are actually diminishing the power of the parliament, Mr. Speaker. And so in proper time, because it's also my right to file my proposed amendment, Mr. Speaker, I would propose, Mr. Speaker. Next is I would go to my second concern, Mr. Speaker. At the national level, we were informed that the validity of the 2023 appropriations, although informally, and it has been part of some discussions, even in the training that we had in Manila, that the validity of the appropriations for 2023 is until 2024. In the case of the Bangsamoro, and as provided in the Bangsamoro expenditure program, what will be is the validity of the appropriation for next year.
Based on the bill, Mr. Speaker, the validity will be from January 1, 2023 to December 31, 2023, Mr. Speaker.
So, in effect, it's only 1 year.
Applying the annual cash-based budgeting, Mr. Speaker, yes.
So that's 1 year.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. And so, we are not following the national.
I think, Mr. Speaker, the national also uses the 1 year validity. However, due to the COVID, they were able to extend the 2020-2021 budget. Their 2022 appropriations already made a specific provision citing that the validity will instead be 2 years for 2022, Mr. Speaker. Not that we are not following, but our process requires to determine the validity of the appropriations. And we determine that to be 1 year, Mr. Speaker, but certain appropriations were also extended, Mr. Speaker.
The reason why I ask this, Mr. Speaker, is given the 4 years of budgeting that we have done, we have observed that not even 50% of the funds allocated for the ministries and offices are utilized, Mr. Speaker. And so if there is a way and if the national government is already following a 2-year validity of the appropriations, why can't we? So that we need not go back here and another law will be adopted by the Parliament. Kasi parang sirang plaka lang tayong paulit-ulit. So, my suggestion is, I don't know how you take this because you said that the national government already observed the 2-year validity, Mr. Speaker. I leave it to the government of the day. My last concern, Mr. Speaker, is that during the course of the discussion at the committee level, we have observed that there is a need for the Parliament to really exercise its oversight function. And when I say that, Mr. Speaker, I refer to the review and assessment of the ministries, agencies, and offices budget at least at the middle of the budget execution. And so that we could redirect, because per observation, in the presentations of all the ministries and offices, they only spend the amount in November to December. But from January to October, they have a very, very low burn rate. Because they assume that by December, there will be a budget hearing. And so naghabol lahat ng November. Ang accomplishment nila nung January to October ay, say, 30%. Pagdating ng November, nag-skyrocket into 80% to 90%. And so, Mr. Speaker, is but proper that we really need to exercise the oversight function of this Parliament by including a provision in the general provision that the Parliament, through the Committee on Finance, shall conduct an mid-year assessment of the budget execution of the ministries and offices, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, nothing prevents us from exercising our oversight function over the ministries and offices. Even we do not include it in a form of special provision, Mr. Speaker. But just to respond, Mr. Speaker, to the conduct of activities falling under in November or December, Mr. Speaker, we have to remember that this 2022 we have a lot of restrictions in the conduct of activities, including the conduct of the procurement activities. We had the election ban in May of this year. Then there was also plebiscite ban and our reappointment, Mr. Speaker. So these three factors or major activities were instrumental in the delayed conduct of our activities, including procurement, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, in proper time, I will postpone an amendment with regards to the oversight function, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the third to ask his interpellation is MP Rasul Ismail.
MP Rasul Ismail, gentleman from Cotabato City, is recognized.
Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Sa aking mga kasama sa BTA. Simple lang po yung aking mga tatanungin. Tayo po ay more or less 4 na taon na dito sa BTA. Noong 2019, 2020, na-remember ko na December din, ay tayo po ay nagtanong doon sa isang proyekto, specifically yung Kapyanan. We are asking that time, ano ba ang status ng mga projects na yan? Sino ba ang mga recipients niyan? Per province, per town, at ngayon po, 2022 na tayo, December na, yun yung gusto kong ma-clarify muna, no? Kasi ganito, no? Doon sa 2.5 billion na dapat ay 6,500 na bahay, ano po ang status niyan ngayon? Kasi ang napapansin ko, for example, no, maliban doon sa Kapyanan, meron pa tayong support to moral governance, ang kanyang ay housing. Doon sa 2 taon na SDF natin, meron rin doong mga ahensya ng ban housing din. Ngayon, ang tanong, no, as representative ng Cotabato City at may kamag-anak na mga MILF combatants sa 2nd District, ano na po ba ang status niyan? Ang mga tao niyan ay umaasa hanggang ngayon na makita nila, maliwanagan sila anong status ng mga proyektong yan. No? Second, dito sa ating maraming rehab. Sa ating Marawi Rehab, sa 3 taon, 2020, 500 million capital outlay lang. 2021, 116,822,748 MOE, ang kanyang capital outlay, 400,500,000. Nung itong 2022, yung MOE para sa Marawi Rehab ay 103,151,342 at yung kanyang capital outlay ay 415 million. Mga kasama, in fairness po sa mga ating mga brothers, mga kaibigan sa Marawi at Lanao del Sur, tinatanong rin po na nila yan. No? And lastly, dito po sa ating SDF. Sa ating SDF for 2 years, no? Yung isang SDF natin, meron po siyang identified na 296 projects. yan. Itong 2020, meron din po tayong projects. $296 din. Ngayon, ano po ang status niyan? Ano ang batayan? Sino nag-a-approve? Sino nag-authorize sa kanya? Kanino yan? Kasi doon sa isang pagsilip ko nito, for example, meron tayong 49 million na binigay sa Tungawan, Zamboanga del Sur. Kung pwede doon, bakit hindi pwede dito sa mga kampo? Dito malapit sa atin sa Maguindanao at Lanao del Sur. At mga kampo sa Basilan. Mga kasama, I hope, no, ito, hindi po ito ako, nilalabas ko lang ito para in fairness din sa atin. Na ma-explain natin ng mabuti doon sa mga tao natin kung saan yung ipinagkatiwala nila sa atin ng mga pondo. And dito sa akin, no, pwede kong i-reproduce ito, no, at ibigay dito sa mga kasama yung kabuuan, especially ng SDF na yan, no. Dapat, kasi nakita ko, meron tayong project sa Libat, meron tayong project sa Zamboanga City. Ngayon, ano ba ang status ng mga proyekto na yan? Yan ba ay ongoing? Yan ba ay papel pa lang? O na-implement na? Ano na? Percentage ng kanyang paggawa? Kaya, Mr. Chair, yan lang po yung initial ko na interpellation. And hopefully, sana doon sa present ng ibang mga ahensya, meron din po ako itatanong.
Unang katanungan ho na kapyanan, may mga challenges ho na encounter in the implementation of the programs. The Office of the Chief Minister is very careful in the implementation of the programs. So marami hong manners in the implementation of the programs. First ho is the conduct or through the public bidding. Second is through the signing of the Memorandum of Agreement with an implementing ministry or LGU. Pangatlo ho is yung land acquisition. So may doon ho sa unang kapyanan project ho natin, hindi ho natin napaglaanan ng pondo yung land acquisition. This was a factor in the implementation of the programs. But in 2021 and in 2022, nagbigay na ho tayo ng kaukulang budget para doon sa land acquisition so that once the land is acquired, the construction will begin. So in the implementation, Mr. Speaker ho, inuna ho yung land acquisition and there were factors in the land acquisition dahil may mga problema ho sa titulo sa lupa. While may mga willing na magbenta ng kanilang mga lupain, pero we require ho the submission of the land title of the registered owner. And alam ho natin yung ating kondisyon or yung ating kalagayan na some of us do not have title, do not have secured copies of their title. So naging factor ho ito sa implementation ng programs in the establishment or construction ng tinatawag nating kapyanan or kapayapaan sa pamayanan, Mr. Speaker. Based on the utilization rate, Mr. Speaker, on the kapyanan, the 2020 kapyanan was already able to obligate 82.77%, Mr. Speaker. When we say obligate, Mr. Speaker, this pertains to at least awarding of the contract. So while meron ka ng 82% utilization rate, posibleng hindi pa 82% tapos yung isang proyekto dahil ang basis ho natin in the utilization is the awarding of the contract. In 2021, Mr. Speaker, there is a utilization rate of 37.64%. And in 2022, nasa 35.58%, Mr. Speaker. Mapapansin ho natin, Mr. Speaker, na sa ating 2023 expenditure program, hindi na ho tayo naglagay ng housing projects. This is to give way to the finishing of the construction of housing projects from 2020 to 2022, Mr. Speaker. On the third question, Mr. Speaker, of the SDF, because MP Basman would like to respond on the MRP, Mr. Speaker, yun hong SDF or Special Development Fund, meron ho tayong inappropriate dito last October 2021. This covered the SDF or Special Development Fund for 2020 at saka 2021. Doon ho sa ating appropriations, naglagay ho tayo ng special provisions detailing the processes that need to be observed. This is also reflected in our 2023 appropriations, Mr. Speaker. If I may be allowed to read the provisions on SDF, Mr. Speaker, the Special Development Fund as a line item amounting to 5 billion shall be used for the rebuilding, rehabilitation, and development of conflict-afflicted communities within the Bangsamoro region pursuant to Section 2, Article 14 of RA 11054, Mr. Speaker. There is hereby created a TWG, Mr. Speaker, which shall be chaired by the Senior Minister. Other members shall be determined by the Chief Minister. The BPDA shall serve as its secretariat. To ensure that the programs, projects, and activities are gender responsive, the Bangsamoro Women's Commission chairperson shall be an ex officio member of the TWG. The Chief Minister, through the TWG, shall set the policies and guidelines on the selection and implementation of special development programs, projects, and activities. So ang nangyayari ho, the identification of the PPAs is done by the different ministries and offices, and then their proposal based on a certain guidelines issued by the Office of the Chief Minister is consolidated by the BPDA as the secretariat. Then this BPDA will forward it to this TWG, which will approve the identification of the PPAs, Mr. Speaker. Since the appropriations allowing the or authorizing the spending of resources on the SDF was passed last October 2021, Mr. Speaker, there was also delay in the implementation, especially on the 2020. While the SDF pertains to 2020, we were only authorized to do the implementation after October 2021, Mr. Speaker, when we appropriated the SDF, Mr. Speaker. So again, Mr. Speaker, the SDF is intended for the rebuilding, rehabilitation, and development of conflict-afflicted communities within the Bangsamoro. The selection is done through a TWG chaired by the Senior Minister, and BPDA sits at or acts as the Secretariat, Mr. Speaker. For the MRP, Mr. Speaker, may I request the response to be given by MP Basman.
MP Basman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Maraming salamat po sa katatunang ito. This gives us the opportunity to clarify how and what are the statuses of the projects funded under the Marawi Rehabilitation Fund of the Office of the Chief Minister. So, konting timeline lang po. Na-create po ang Marawi Rehabilitation Program noong October 2020 after the successful conclusion and reporting out of the Special Committee on Marawi of the Parliament of the comprehensive needs and evolving needs of the IDPs. So kung ating pong matatandaan, meron na pong nakalaan na pondo as soon as 2020 kicked in. However, in deference to the process being conducted by the Parliament, the Chief Minister opted to defer utilization thereof at hintayin yung recommendation ng ating Special Committee. And yun na nga po, 3 months before the end of the year, ay na-create ang Marawi Rehabilitation Program after the report of the SCM. So it was a good thing that was the budget for 2020 was extended because we only had 2 months in the Marawi Rehabilitation Program Steering Committee to approve projects to be funded under the 500 million pesos mentioned by our good colleague. At ito po ay hindi makakaya na i-approve and then i-implement within the same 2 to 3 months of the year. So, na-extend po yun. So, we were able to carry over the 500 million to the following year, 2021, along with the fresh 500 million pesos, again, subject to the approval of projects by the PSC for implementation initially by the implementing ministries. So what we did when we realized, Mr. Speaker, because the MRP is a body that continues and is constantly assessing its performance, what we realized is there's much delay if the implementers are only external to the program. So, we recommended to the Chief Minister to create a program management office. At yan po ay na-create noong 2021 of March. So, given that, Mr. Speaker, the MRP was able to fully control and determine the progress and the direction of the rehabilitation program of the BARM government. So it is true that there has been a lot of implementation challenges for the MRP. It shares the challenge with Kapianan on the difficulty of procuring or acquiring land for its infrastructure projects. Ang ating pong difficulty is by law, we only can procure land that has a clean title. So as we know, in our region, that is a rare occurrence, a rare gem. So kaya po doon tumagal yung ating paghanap at pag-implement ng mga infrastructure projects natin. But alhamdulillah, after so much due diligence, we are starting to locate areas where the titles are clean. We even solicited the assistance of the LGUs to find or locate these lands para po mapabilis yung ating implementation. So yun po yung sa aspeto ng infrastructure. But let me also clarify that because we have IDPs who have continuing daily needs, we did not limit ourselves to infra projects. Alam po natin ang infra takes months or even years to complete, kaya po hindi tayo limited to that kind of a response. So we have Sagip Kabuhayan program. We have repairs of the water systems in the shelters. We have all of the other assistance that we have given the IDPs in many different forms para po yung mga aspeto ng kanilang difficulty while they are still displaced are responded to by the BARM government. Noting that it is not the BARM which is primarily responsible for Marawi rehabilitation. That is still reserved even in the BOL to the national government. What we did in the BARM and what we are doing in the BARM is supplementary to that, and that is what we are doing for our IDPs, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, MP Rasul. I hope that will be a consolidation of your questions. No? In relation to the...
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we ask the beautiful lady of Marawi na mag-submit po ng written report about dun sa Marawi Rehabilitation Program. Ano po yung programa na natapos na, ginagawa at gagawin pa?
Glad, Mr. Speaker, provided that the good gentleman chooses to remove the reference to any physical attribute that this representation has. I think this is already our fourth year together. You will know that I do not take this sitting down, Mr. Speaker. So I will gladly submit a written report to the Parliament. We have done so multiple times. We have reported every single centavo of utilization of the MRP to the committee, to the subcommittee, and we will gladly do that to the Parliament, provided that we give due deference and mutual respect to our peers in this august body. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Any more?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and maraming salamat sa ating kasama, MP Tahata, Attorney Tahata Basman.
Mr. Speaker, just to properly manifest that the position of our presenter earlier, as referred to, is she's our deputy floor leader. That's her official designation in this Parliament. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for that manifestation. The next to ask his questions is MP Matalam.
MP Matalam from Pagalungan. Maguindanao is now recognized. Gentleman from Pagalungan, Maguindanao.
Assalamualaikum, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I go to my... I would like to give a simple information on my reservation, Mr. Speaker. I made my reservation, Mr. Speaker, on the day we approved the budget of the BHRC. On the day we celebrated the International Human Rights Day. Even though, Mr. Speaker, I still reserve, I had my reservation, Mr. Speaker, because of they cannot explain actually, Mr. Speaker, one of their output indicators na sa totoo lang, Mr. Speaker, hanggang ngayon, hindi ko pa rin maintindihan. And I asked them, Mr. Speaker, na they furnish me a copy or the detailed costs doon sa specific output indicator nila, Mr. Speaker. And up until now, Mr. Speaker, wala pa po kung nakarating sa akin na explanation on the subject, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Bangsamoro Human Rights Commission, to which the good MP has a reservation, submitted its revised 2023 performance indicators matrix last December 14, 2022. We have to furnish the good gentleman, Mr. Speaker, of the copy of the revised performance indicators matrix, Mr. Speaker. Although the data that I have, Mr. Speaker, is the one that is submitted to MFBM, Mr. Speaker. So I suppose that this was also submitted to the Committee on Finance and Budget and Management, which will eventually furnish the good gentleman of the copy, Mr. Speaker.
May we request the Secretariat to reproduce the report of the BHRC and to give copy, furnish copy to the good gentleman from Batalugan, Maguindanao.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, just I would like to go to detail doon sa query ko, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Because I still haven't had a copy of the... Because, Mr. Speaker, para maintindihan lang natin, Mr. Speaker, about doon sa detail, sa jail visitations nila, Mr. Speaker. On 2022, Mr. Speaker, they have a target of 56 jail visitation. And I think I have to check on my cell phone, Mr. Speaker, just to be correct on my data, Mr. Speaker. So target po nila, Mr. Speaker, in 2022. On their... I don't think that's the right on their jail visitation, Mr. Speaker.
On 2022.
1.3, Secretariat.
Number 3.
1.3, jail and detention.
Yun na yun yung sa taas.
Yes. Yan po, Mr. Speaker. Noong 2022, Mr. Speaker, they have a target of 56 jail and detention facilities monitoring, Mr. Speaker. And they have a budget of 668,000, Mr. Speaker. And lumagpas po sila sa target nila. Alhamdulillah, 64 po yung nagawa nila. And natapos po nila yung 64 jail visitations nila, Mr. Speaker, ng almost 300,000 lang po yung nagastos nila. Now, Mr. Speaker, they asked for an addition of, I think it's 72. Now it's 78. 72 targets, Mr. Speaker, of 1.7 million, Mr. Speaker. Ang hiningi nila. And that's why I asked for a detailed explanation dito sa hinihingi nila, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the 56 is, if the Secretary can flash yung heading ho sa taas, the 56 is the 2023 target, original 2023 target. That's 56. Based on this, the 78 realizing and recognizing the very good observation of the good gentleman, they now have made that into 78, Mr. Speaker. So the 56 was the original 2023 target, but since they realized the observation of the good gentleman, they now made it 78, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but it's just from 64, Mr. Speaker, nagawa po nila yung 64 targets nila ng 300,000 lang po. It's just an addition. So paano po umabot? This is very small, Mr. Speaker. I just want a clarity on this one, Mr. Speaker. A detailed costing of this, Mr. Speaker. Kasi bigla pong bumalo ng 1.7. Ay, hindi ko po kinukuha. Tinanong ko lang po ito, Mr. Speaker, na hanggang ngayon, wala pa po akong definite na explanation galing sa kanila. That's why I had to make my reservation.
Yes, the question of good MPs is that in the 64 jail visitation, they their expenses were about 300,000. And in the budget, they are asking for 1.7 million doon sa 78 jail visitation. So, kung 64 ay kaya ng 300,000, bakit to sa 78 ay 1.7 million? Yun ang detailed explanation sa hinihingi ni MP Matalam doon sa Bangsamoro Human Rights
Mr. Speaker, one possible explanation for this is that in every facility ho, magkakaiba ho yung number of inmates. So this may also require more assistance. Halimbawa, sa isang facility or isang jail, pwedeng marami siyang, and that is considered only as one, pero maraming inmates, therefore requiring more assistance. Another possible explanation for this, Mr. Speaker, is the provision of the assistance. Pwedeng tinaasan or tataasan yung value ng assistance na ibibigay doon sa mga inmates that the BHRC is targeting, Mr. Speaker. Although this is not coming from the BHRC, but this may be the possible explanation to the question, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, precisely that was I made my reservation, Mr. Speaker, because I would not want to have an assumption on the budget, Mr. Speaker.
May we request the good MPs to first secure the copy of the report of HRC, and you may ask or continue the interpellation tomorrow after reading the explanation of the BSRC. Meron pa tayong time bukas.
Okay, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the next to ask his questions is the Deputy Speaker Ben Loong. Deputy Speaker Ben Loong, for his interpellation.
Gentleman from Sulu, Deputy Speaker Ben Loong is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Itong katanungan ko, dahil siguro bago lang ako dito sa Parliament, kasi nung mga subcommittee meetings, unfortunately, yung schedule sa isang araw, 5 or 6 committees at the same time. So, ika nga, hindi ako nakapunta sa MAPAR, ibang committee ang napuntahan ko. So ngayon, sa Mother Committee, tinanong ko naman yung chairman namin, si Minister Guerra, kanya yung pinopropose mo na hindi na pwede. Kaya nireserve ko na rito sa plenary. So ika nga, ang katanungan ko lang naman, gusto ko mangyari sa MAPAR. Tinanong ko si Minister nandito, Mr. Jacob, kasi napag-usapan namin nung hindi pa ako member ng Parliament. Kanya, ang programa natin sa Sulu, mag-tractor na tayo. Kasi programa ko rin noon yung governor ako for 204 to 207 ng Sulu. Nakikita ko yung program na yun, di ka nga maganda at kaagad-agad yung mga beneficiaries natin, farmers, in 45 days, 30 days, or 45 days, 3 months, Up to 7 months pagkasabang programa mo. So ngayon, dahil nakita ko rin na marami tayong pera, halimbawa yung sa Special Purpose Fund, mayroon tayong more than 2 billion. Sa contingency fund, mayroon tayong over 6 billion. Kako baka itong iniisip or ipopropose ko ngayon, baka pwede isingit maskin, halimbawa 100 million lang man. Hindi lang naman para sa sulok. Para sa nagre-reserve din si MP Matalam kung may sobra raw sa sulo sa kanila na. So, yun lang Mr. Speaker, kung pwede.
Mr. Speaker, while there is more than 2 billion contingent fund, we also have to remember that there are earmarked items, Mr. Speaker, which were not included in the computation of the more than 2 billion. This includes the initiative for digitization of transactions, which is, I think, the direction of the government, the Islamic finance programs, the possible acquisition of the Al-Amana Islamic Bank, the payment of the customs, duties, and taxes, other services on health, education in the infra projects, the acquisition of land and infrastructure in the Pulyok Development Master Plan, Mr. Speaker. These are earmarked, however, there are no specific amount required for this, and these are not included in the more than 2 billion contingent fund, Mr. Speaker. But the fund for these earmarked items are to be taken from the contingent fund, Mr. Speaker. So while it appears na meron tayong malaking contingent fund as fiscal space, pero there are certain items that we have classified as earmarked to be taken from this contingent fund, Mr. Speaker.
The question of Deputy Speaker, is it possible on these amounts of money to acquire tractors? Para hindi lang para sa Sulu, but to sa ibang bahagi pa ng buong bar. So, meron ba mapagkukuhanan ng pondo? Possible. So sa kay MP.
Diretso lang ang tanong ko, Mr. Speaker. Pwede ba yung proposal ko or hindi pwede?
Mr. Speaker, not that we do not allow the proposal. However, as presented yesterday in the fiscal space, I think this was presented by the chair himself. Mukhang nagne-negative na ho tayo. So even, I think, even these earmarked items may not be entirely funded by the contingent fund, Mr. Speaker. So if the wish of the good gentleman from Sulu is to have this funded, and the idea, Mr. Speaker, is to take away from the existing POPs, Mr. Speaker, to which the fund may be taken, Mr. Speaker. Pwede, however, we have to take fund from other POPs we already approved, Mr. Speaker.
So, ibig sabihin, Mr. Speaker, itong contingency fund, di ba wala pang details nito? At saka itong special purpose fund, walang details nito, di ba? May detalya na ba to?
There are details already. Not as detailed as our appropriations, but there are items we already earmarked for, Mr. Speaker. Naka-earmark na ho siya, so it may not be as detailed as these appropriations, but the release of the fund will require the detailing of these earmark items, Mr. Speaker.
So, Mr. Speaker, yun lang ang concern ko. Pag pwede, hindi pwede, okay lang. Thank you.
The next to ask his questions, Mr. Speaker, is MP Don Loong.
MP Don Loong, the gentleman from Sulu, MP Don Loong is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to commend the Committee on Finance as well as the subcommittees because I had seen how hard they work and how much they scrutinized the budget and ensured that the policies and what is good for the people is followed. I'm just going to raise an issue by some para teachers because I'm sure they are watching the Parliament, that we tried at least to push for higher salary for the para teachers. In fact, I think they wrote to many members of Parliament. Their salary right now is 15,000. 15,000 as salaries of the para teachers. They are the provisional teachers. That is around 800 all over the Bangsamoro. They talked to me in Sulu and requested if their salary can be increased by 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, because many of them have GSIS loans that is deducting almost 10,000 a month for their loans. Now, wala rin magawa tayo because that is a private contract. So GSIS is really authorized to deduct. Unfortunately, we have so many teachers in Sulu that is only receiving a net salary of 5,000 pesos because of their loans. So for humanity, we raised this. Unfortunately, hindi rin lumusot sa subcommittee and some other committee. But I'm just raising this in case may mga savings tayo, may mga fiscal space, baka pwedeng madagdagan yung respect program ng MDHTE. Under Minister Iqbal, of course, syempre, fixed na yung pondo niya. Pero kung ang Parliament makahanap ng extra money, sana madagdagan natin yung respect program. Sa ngayon, nasa 150 million ang pondo ng respect program, giving 800 teachers a salary of 15,000. So just in case may fiscal space, inshallah madagdagan natin ito. That's all, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, ito hong respect program or Bangsamoro Responsive Education System Promoting Effectiveness Competency Teaching ay isang programa ho na naisip ng Bangsamoro government to address the provisional teachers. Ang kasaysayan ho nito ay there were times na merong mga na-appoint na provisional teachers. When we say provisional teachers, they were allowed to be appointed for a certain period pending the absence of the qualified teachers. So medyo na-extend ho sila na-extend, but there was a decision by the, I think, civil service which no longer allows the reappointment of the provisional teachers dahil marami na ho tayong qualified licensed professional teachers. So that's why napatigil ho yung appointment nila during the BARM, but to address the needs and concerns of these provisional teachers, naisip po ng Bangsamoro government through the Ministry of Basic Higher and Technical Education itong tinatawag na respect. So ang inappoint ho dito sa respect na to at a certain rate is yung mga hindi na-appoint o na-reappoint na provisional teachers, Mr. Speaker. So ganun ho ang history nitong respect program. Originally, they were provisional teachers, but since civil service rules and regulations no longer allows them to be appointed, so they were instead hired as contract of service under the respect program, Mr. Speaker. So the economic conditions or they were also considered, Mr. Speaker, while they're not qualified for appointment as regular teachers, but they were given positions under the respect, Mr. Speaker. The rate is subject to existing accounting and auditing rules and regulations, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Deputy Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the next to ask his questions is MP Ali Babaw.
MP
Thank you very much.
is now recognized.
Mr. Speaker,
You may proceed now.
well, actually, hindi ito tanong, just a request to the Deputy Floor Leader, Basman na kaya na. Kasi kanina, sinabi niya na yung Marawi Rehabilitation Program started in October 20. You know what she got? 2020. Okay. So, kasi kung kukwentahin mo yung funding na appropriate, na release siguro sa MRP, malaki-laki na rin. Kasi last 2022, based on the report of MP Ismail, more than 500 million was allocated. For 2023, malaki-laki rin. So, MP Basman said that she will prepare and submit a report to the Parliament on the accomplishment of the MRP as far as the rehabilitation of Marawi is concerned. So, I would like to ask the group if there is a truth of the issue that last year they bought a property, a land, in good faith, of course, in good faith. But it turns the property is amounting to about 80 million. Correct me if I'm wrong. It turns out that there are other claimants sinasabing, oy, bakit nyo binili yan? Amin yan. So, if that is true, I would like to suggest to the good deputy floor leader, being a lawyer, I hope we can do something to protect the interest of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. And maybe it's high time that we file a case against those people who sold out property to MRP, which turns out to be not their property. Kasi that's a very clear case of staffa by fooling the MRP of that huge amount. I'm not blaming the MRP, Mr. Speaker, because of their sincere commitment to implement projects intended to the victims of the Marawi siege in a hurry. They were made to believe that the property that they bought in Barangay Bilay is really that legitimate property does not belong to many people. Because alam niyo po sa amin sa Lanao del Sur, especially in Marawi, even if that property is titled, darating lalabas at lalabas po, Mr. Speaker, yung mga tao sinasabi, kasama kami dyan. Kami may-ari dyan. So, guguluhin niya, magugulo po. So, ang sa akin lang po ay kaya ako tinutulong ko si MP Ismail nag-raise. In fact, earlier I did not register to be asking questions, but because of that, I'd like to strongly ask the good deputy floor leader that if that incident is true, that we were really fooled of that amount, big amount, I think there is a need for us to protect the interest of them and file the necessary charges against those people. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, just to respond very quickly, at short answer po, hindi po totoo na may binili tayong lupa sa Dalay amounting to 80 million. Rest assured that the MRP, because of its consciousness of the difficulty of acquiring land that is free from claims, free from encumbrances, it conducts thorough due diligence on any land that is offered to it for purchase. So meron po tayong matinding proseso na pinagdadaanan bago po natin i-consider na bilhin ang isang lupa, at wala pong katotohanan yung may binili tayong lupa sa Dalay amounting to 80 million pesos na turns out to be owned by other persons. Wala po tayo nabiling ganon. Ang ating pong proseso ay to check with the Registry of Deeds, with the LRA, with the courts, with the tax assessor's office, with the MEMRO, kung merong conflicting claims. Only when wala po na ganong klaseng conflicting claims do we consider procuring the land. But also only after announcing through radio, two-way and FM, as well as posting in the on the property itself our intention to buy the land. So we conduct talaga po, Mr. Speaker, very thorough due diligence and all bases covered before we consider buying a land in our infrastructure projects.
Mr. Speaker, last concern. You know, I am not actually against providing outside the court territory. But my concern is that we have to concentrate on the court territory, 6 provinces now, which is our showcase to attract investment in the world, to attract people, to make them believe that we are capable of developing our territory. Kasi if you remember, Mr. Speaker, may challenge po na dapat masagot natin yung statement ni Senator Scudero na kami daw ay hindi ni Pandesal, hindi natin kayang gumawa. So, masyadong maliit ang pagtingin niya. Kaya tayo po, dapat ito, Mr. Speaker, I repeat, I am not against providing project, funding project outside the territory, but I was surprised to know that there are projects in Zamboanga City, even in Zamboanga del Sur, and other areas outside the core territory. But I would remind my colleagues in this August chamber, Mr. Speaker, that we must concentrate our efforts in developing our core territory. Kasi po, itong core territory po natin, huwag natin kalilimutan, Mr. Speaker. These are the people who join us and voted yes, a resounding yes, for the creation of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Pero yung mga iba who even rejected our call for autonomy, our demand for our right as Bangsamoro people, they voted no. Tapos hindi ko naman object na tingnan natin sila, but we must concentrate, Mr. Speaker, sa ating mga kapatid na sumama sa atin, nagboto ng yes. Kasi kung hindi sila nagboto ng yes, wala tayong banom, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Duly noted, MP Babaw. That's the pleasure of the Deputy Leader.
The last to ask his question, Mr. Speaker, is Deputy Speaker Nabil Tan.
Deputy Speaker, gentleman from Sulu, Attorney Nabil Tan is recognized.
Hello. I do. Tinuturuan ako ng mali. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Leader. Doon sa tatanungin ko lang kasi we're about to finish. Meron ba tayong certification ng bill na to ng General Appropriations Act as urgent?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Pwede ba i-flash dyan?
We will request the Secretariat if they have a copy to flash it on the screen.
While the Secretariat is trying to fix it, may I just go to another issue before going back. Dyan na ba? Dear Speaker Balindong. By certified, I said immediately. So, yan po. Maliwanag po sa atin yan. It's being certified as urgent. Before I go further, may I ask if, as regards our TDIF, this is a suggestion or manifestation to all ministries concerned na yung TDIF kailangan bigyan ng leeways ang member of parliament doon sa pangangailangan sa baba. So hopefully all the ministries will add or consider mga sinasubmit natin kasi kuminsan ang menu hindi attractive eh. So at hindi kailangan sa lugar. So sana maging nag-umpisa na ako dito kay Minister Edguera na i-consider na yung mga mini dump truck for garbage, mga ganon. Sabi na isasama na rin niya. So wala na po bang mag-interpolate? Ano?
Bakit?
I'm
There's a move to close the period of interpellation and debate in the duly seconded. The chair declares the same as approved.
I move to open the floor for the period of period of amendments.
The period of amendment is now open.
meron amendment. May mag-amend ba?
I have not received any manifestation. IMP Baintan wishes to introduce her proposed amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recognize Mr. Speaker.
The lady from Maguindaonan, Cotabato City, MP Engineer Baitana Patuan is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My proposed amendment actually is on section 58, specifically with regards to the realignment from the capital outlay to MOE, Mr. Speaker, because by operation of the law, it's actually a technical malversation. You cannot just realign an appropriation from a capital outlay to maintenance and other operating expenses. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move that the specific item that allows the modification with regards to transferring the object, the expenditure item from MOE to capital outlay to MOE, and as well as the PS will be deleted in the section 58, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, since it's taken from the national GAA as well, this is we just checked the 2023 GAA, Mr. Speaker, containing the same provision, Mr. Speaker. I do not accept the proposed amendment.
And Mr. Speaker, in that case, I maintain my reservation with regards to that specific provision, because generally under the law, a capital outlay cannot be realigned to another item expenditure because that's not allowed by the law, Mr. Speaker. If we want to pursue that particular modification, then the concerned ministry or offices should sought the approval of the parliament, because in the approval process of the budget, we made specifically an item of expenditure for PS, MOE, and capital outlay. Any change that is supposed to be done with that approved provision by the parliament should be returned back to this parliament, Mr. Speaker. And so I manifest my specific reservation on this provision under section 58, Mr. Speaker. Moving on, Mr. Speaker, am I still recognized?
Yes, you may proceed, MP Baintan.
With regards to the oversight function, Mr. Speaker, I move that we insert a general provision that says the following. Pwedeng i-take note ng Secretariat.
Yes. The Secretariat is so requested.
In the exercise of the oversight function of the Parliament, comma, oversight function of the Parliament, the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management, or CFBM, spell out mo. CFBM, open close CFBM, is hereby authorized to conduct semi-annual review and assessment of the ministries, agencies, and offices implementation of this act that pertains to the General Appropriations Act of the Bangsamoro. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, as mentioned, there is nothing that prevents us from not just in the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management, but with other committees, Mr. Speaker, in the conduct of any review and assessment of the ministries and agencies and offices, Mr. Speaker. That being the case, I do not accept the proposed amendment, Mr. Speaker, because even without this provision, we can exercise the power of oversight function, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised because while there is a recognition that this is a power vested with the Parliament, writing it explicitly would actually strengthen that power. And so I cannot understand, Mr. Speaker, why we do not allow this provision when in fact we inserted so much provisions, general provisions, even other provisions that are, I think this one is better than the other provisions, Mr. Speaker.
Respect pa kanina.
If I may, Mr. Speaker, because I cannot accept that, then let's divide the House, Mr. Speaker.
One minute suspension, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we do not oppose a division of the House on this aspect.
Yes.
We submit to the division of the House on this particular provision, Mr. Speaker.
With the non-acceptance of the proponent of the bill and the approval of the deputy.
Not accept?
Accept or not accept. Of the deputy floor leader for the division of the House, the chair declares the division of the House. May we request the secretariat? Yes. Yeah, we request the secretariat to determine whether we are in quorum or not.
By viva voce, Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
by viva voce.
Mr. Speaker, we defer again to conduct the votation by raising of hands.
Those who are in favor of proposed amendments of MP Baintan Ampatuan, just raise your hand.
Is the Secretary General doing the counting? Okay. Mr. Speaker, can we proceed with the next?
Those who are against to the proposed amendment of MP Baintan Ampatuan, please raise your hand. Those who are against to the proposed amendment of MP Baintan Ampatuan, please raise your hand.
May Zoom tayo?
We request the secretariat to count also the vote from the Zoom. Yes. May we request the members of the Parliament to have an abstain vote.
Mr. Speaker,
Abstain vote.
Mr. Speaker, may we know what is that tracing of kanino yan para sa kasi we just showed it during the second votation.
May we request the members of the Parliament to put on the chat room their vote, not just by raising their hands. May chat room naman. MP Jamila Ramos, please indicate if you are against. Yes, against. MP Kandao. Yes. Thank you. And MP Rosie Makatal. Please indicate in the chat room whether you are against or you are supporting the. MP Ambrosi Makatanong. May we request the Secretary to announce the result of the division of the House.
Mr. Speaker, we have now the result of the votations on the amendments raised by the Honorable Member of the Parliament, Baintan Ampatuan. There are 17 votes in favor of the amendments. There are 22 votes against the amendments, and we have 3 abstained, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The total 42.
The total is 42.
Yes. The votes for against is 22, and the in favor is 17. The chair declares the against have it.
Mr. Speaker, there being no other MPs manifesting their desire to introduce amendments, I move for the termination of the period of amendments.
The termination of period.
Mr. Speaker, Mr.
I retract that, Mr. Speaker. I think the proponent himself has something to say. I withdraw, Mr. Speaker, the motion to terminate the period of amendments.
1 minute suspension.
Mr. Speaker, we proceed. We don't retract anymore the motion to the termination of the period of amendments. I move, Mr. Speaker, to approve the report on second reading.
There is a move to approve the Parliament Bill number 54 of Committee Report number 2 on second reading by Viva Voce. Those who are in favor of approval of Parliament Bill number 54 on second reading, say
Wait lang, Mr. Speaker. Votation na ba?
yeah, hindi,
Are we-
second reading muna.
Without
Second reading muna, second
Nako.
reading.
process check tayo, Mr. Speaker.
Basta
Point of order, Mr. Kasi sa
Yes, Deputy
I believe the assistant floor leader has already made a motion to
Yes.
approve and it has not, I'm sorry, it has not been seconded yet. So technically, it has not been seconded. So there is no interference in the conduct of votation. Who seconded the,
May I be recognized, Mr. Speaker?
Deputy Speaker.
Kasi, Mr. Speaker,
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, actually, it was already seconded, Mr. Speaker, because you are in the presence of actually, pagpuputok ka lang, it was already seconded. For the record, Mr. Speaker.
no, my clarification, Mr. Speaker,
Mr.
is
Speaker, have we resumed? Have we resumed?
We are
we have resumed already.
If we have resumed the session, Mr. Speaker, we are in the midst of voting, which is a process that cannot be interrupted by anything. We should abide by our rules, Mr. Speaker.
Except that point of order.
Mr. Speaker can rule on the rules of order, but this is in the midst of votation.
It's a point of order.
This bill on second reading. After that, we can present whatever we want to present on the.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
1 minute suspension again, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, even the amount of the budget
this is a supplementary motion for the approval of Parliament Bill number 54, an act appropriating funds for the operation of the Bangsamoro government from January 1 to December 31, 2023, and for other purposes in the total amount of 85,359,315,687 pesos. Move to approve by viva voce, on second reading by viva voce vote.
Yes, there is a move to approve BTA Parliament Bill number 54, an act appropriating funds for the operation of Bangsamoro government from January 1 to December 31, 2023 for other purposes in the total amount of 85,359,315,687 pesos. It is duly seconded. The chair declares the same as approved. Those who are in favor by viva voce, those who are in favor of the approval of BTA Bill number 54 say aye. Those who are against say nay. It is evident that the aye have it. Yeah. 1 minute suspension.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes, MP.
resume na.
Session resume.
If, Mr. Speaker, may I be recognized?
Yes.
I just want to ask if this is a certified, BTA Bill number 54 is a certified urgent bill.
Yes, it's already been a part of interpretation.
If it is a certified urgent bill, we can approve the bill now on third and final reading. If it is a certified bill.
The deputy floor leader. I'd like to remind the August body that the committee report version has been approved in total without amendments. So
Mr. Speaker,
the copies already been distributed among the members of the parliament.
Mr. Speaker, in view of the certification of the urgency of this bill, I move that we approve Parliament Bill number 54 on third reading by nominal voting.
There is a move to approve Parliament Bill number 54 upon the certification urgent bill by the Chief Minister by nominal voting. It is duly seconded. The chair declares the same as approved. May we request the Secretary to facilitate the nominal voting? We will request the Secretariat to facilitate the nominal voting.
Nominal voting on BTA Parliament Bill number 54. Don't guess it. Honorable Member of the Parliament, Abbas Ahmad. Abbas Harun.
Abbas Basit. Abu Mujib. Abu Mujib. Alamia Laisa. Alauddin Musbir. Ali Ibrahim. Ali Lanang Junior. Ali Edi. Ambulodto Suharto. Aminuddin Abdul Aziz. Ampatuan Baintan. Anayatin Susana. Antau Muhammad Kili. Arnado Mirian. Asnawi Dan. Babaw Ali Muntaha. Balindong Pangalian. Basman Ana Tarhata. Kandaw Bay Maliha.
Yes, my vote is yes.
Dilanggalin Hashimi. Dumama Albasa Iliha.
Yes.
Yes. Ibrahim Ahud. Ismail Suharto. Estino Matarol. Gayak Abdullah. Gira Edward. Explain it.
Opo.
Lambiran mo sa'yo, hindi ako naglambir. Haji Abdullah Khalid Maamur. Haji Abdullah Khalid Maamur. Hashim Abdullah. Hasan Hatinil. Iqbal Mohagir. Ismail Rasul. Jajuri Raisa. Jakilan Muslimin. Jekiri Al-Bakil. Kahal Martin. Karon Faisal. Karon Faisal. Lim Jan Anthony. Loong Benjamin. Loong Don Mustafa.
Okay. I'd like to express.
LC Long is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'd like to manifest my full support to the enactment of this budget, the first budget approved by the BTA 2 and the end of COVID. So all eyes will be on us. There's no more COVID that we could seek excuse. However, I'd like to commend as well the Committee on Finance led by the chairperson, the vice chair, and Minister Pakasem, who had done their job of really scrutinizing the budget and looking for ways to optimize it. As a person from the island provinces, it was a challenge to make sure that the services are equitably distributed to all the provinces. And we hope that it will never be an excuse that it is cheaper to implement in the mainland than in the islands because we are all part of the Bangsamoro. On a lighter note, we are happy that education is a big priority in this budget. And while I cry that the para-teachers are not given additional salary, but in the future, inshallah, there might be a way. And we are happy that the additional specialist items was provided in all the district hospitals. And I'm happy that indeed this is part of the winnings of the Bangsamoro government, having the block grant, that we can be more responsive to our people wherever they are. In closing, there is no more reason to say that we cannot reach the farthest areas of the Bangsamoro. Inshallah, with this budget, we can make the Bangsamoro be felt in all areas of the Bangsamoro.
Lorena Jose.
Thank you. Can I have a few minutes to explain my vote? I am voting yes because our people are expecting so much from all of us. And I think the national government is also looking at us. I do not like to be an obstructionist and to delay the delivery of service to our people. I hope this is a people's budget intended to serve our people. 3 years is too short to grapple with. Any delay in this administration will definitely be shown in 2025. So I vote yes, because I do not like to delay any further the delivery of that service. And I do not like also that I will be put to blame by the president who appointed me to be members of this BTA. For his instruction, his performance is the best gauge for all our service here. And I hope the Bangsamoro people will see fit this budget and will see fit that our governance under the pronounced moral governance is true to its form and true to its shape. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Makakuha Abdul Rauf. Makapaar Abdullah. Makasalong Marjani. Makatanong Amrusi. Maglangit Tarhata. Malik Hamid. Mantawil Bailing. Mastura Ishak. Matalam Jaafar Apollo Mikail. Mawalil Amil Bahar. Mendoza Proilin. Midtimbang Michael. Midtimbang Tawakal.
Yes.
Miswari Abdul Karim. Miswari Nurrida. Mitmog Rasul Jr. Muñoz Hussain. Uranon Suaib. Pakasim Ubeda. Pak Abdul Wahab. Pangandaman Nabila Margarita. Parkasio Randolph. Yang Ramon. Ramos Diamila.
Boto ko po ay yes para po sa kapakanan ng ating Bangsamoro. Maraming salamat po.
Salindab Said. Nagsalita?
The MP Jamila Ramos is recognized. May we request the Secretariat, please, to fix the audio.
Mr. Speaker, bumoto na po ako kanina. Ang sabi ko po, ang boto ko po ay yes para po ito sa kapakanan ng ating Bangsamoro. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, MP Ramos. Please proceed, Secretary.
Salindab Said. Salik Ali. Sangki Ali. Sima Omar Yasir.
MP Deputy Speaker Attorney Omar Sema is recognized.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I explain my vote?
You may proceed.
I vote yes, Mr. Speaker. A while ago, we voted on a certain amendment that arose out of a provision in the BEP. As a lawyer, Mr. Speaker, I entertain doubts in my mind as to certain provisions, especially when it is not clear and where there are no judicial decisions on the matter. As to a matter of modification in a certain allotment, that has not been, allowing the executive to modify, that has not been settled in judicial decisions. So technically, there is no legal justification for that matter. While Congress allows that provision to be written in the GAA, that has not been questioned. So I voted to join, I voted yes to that proposed amendment. But be that as it may, we are not obstructionists. We support this budget. We are in the 4th year, going into the 6th year, in the 5th year. And in the next 2 years, that would be the end of the transition period. And I hope that what we have done this year will add to the accolades that we have achieved in the last 3 years. That we have become truly a parliament that sees the executive as responsible to the parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary, please proceed.
Sima Romeo. Sheikh Said. Silungan Aida. Sinulinding Kadil. Sulaiman Ali. Tago Paisalin.
Deputy Speaker Paisan. For your
Mr. Speaker, we are very allowed to explain my 100 sentence explanation of my, anyway, I will,
yes, I will give you
Thank you. I will consolidate my explanation, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Isang napakalaking karangalan to, Mr. Speaker. Nasa mag-apat na taon, ako po ay nasama sa kasaysayan ng Bangsamoro Autonomous Government na isa sa mga inyong lingkod member of parliament na ma-approve ng ating budget para sa ating mga kababayang Bangsamoro people. You know, this budget, although it is not perfect, but has undergone scrutiny in the subcommittee level and in the committee level. And on that note, Mr. Speaker, I have to give deep thanks and gratitude to the chair of the committee for patiently presiding the committee deliberation in the Committee on Finance and Budget and Management. Doon ko siya nakita na yung sabang na Wednesday Islam ay nandun sa kanya. Hindi mo makita sa kanya na naiinis, nagagalit, tumatawa lang siya. Dahil lang pag tumatawa siya, hindi ko makita yung mata niya. Abit siya, wala siya. Ayun lang, Mr. Speaker, this budget, almost said is not a perfect budget. And as I stated in the previous budget, this budget is unique budget because we provide a budget for our mother's educational system. We provide a budget to the power system. We provide a budget for the upgrading of Australia educational system. So that's why this budget is unique budget because this budget, the budget that I mentioned, cannot be found in the national budget. It is only for this budget that you can found that I stated earlier, Mr. Speaker. Kaya ako po ay nagpapasalamat. Kanina sinabi ng aking kagalang-galang na chairman na Giant, yes, ang kanyang buto. May sobra sa Giant, hyper Giant. Kaya ang aking buto ay hyper Giant, yes. Maraming salamat. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Barrett, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, may I be allowed to explain my vote?
Yes, you may proceed.
Earlier, Mr. Speaker, we had a little wrinkles during our deliberation. I would say it was in the guise of improving the budget. However, be that as it may, I would say that this budget has been deliberated upon and many of us has participated. And we were given ample time to ask questions. So those who were present that did not ask question then may have decided not to ask question even in plenary. So I allowed this budget for recognizing that the pandemic is still with us. China has locked down its biggest province. That's why we had some rollback in fuel prices in the past weeks. So yun ang benefit sa atin. Itong budget na to po ay sa kauna-unahang pagkakataon nagbigay ng malaking boost sa ating health system in the province. We have approved the upgrading of 7 hospitals. I mentioned China because of COVID, and I relate that with the hospital upgrading because that is still, COVID still within our midst. And so with that 7 hospitals upgraded with an ICU level, some of them, I think we are ready for the worst. Hopefully not that worse nothing worse will happen. I also commiserate with the teachers. Yung sinight po ni MP Don Long, wala na po magawa dahil marami ng left teachers at mayroon ng batas. We will not pass a law that will go against existing rules or laws. So, kailangan natin na ganun po ang mangyari. Although I commiserate with them, kasi yung 15,000 binibigay sa kanila, 5,000 na lang ang take-home net. Pero hopefully, inshallah, may magawa pa. Pero kung hindi, ipasa na lang nilang let. Para wala na talagang, hindi ka na makakaasa dyan sa para or sa respect program na yan. So I hope that in the execution of the budget, the ministries will remain true to their commitments in terms of improving their delivery of programs and projects. So I see this as a very good budget, and wala na pa akong mga hirit pa dito. Let no one say that this was rewarded. It is not. It has been subjected to severe scrutiny by members of the committee, including those non-members. So with this, and I will commend the chairman of the committee on finance for persevering and keeping his composure throughout the budget process. Although maswerte siya, sandali lang ang budget niya, na-approve na kagad. So anyway, sana maging matagumpay ang ating fiscal financial year next year, at wag po tayo lumampas dahil may mga katulad ni Omar Sema, meron din ako reservation. Pero that's water under the bridge. I hope that we will not be charged for any violation of laws. Thank you very much. I therefore vote 100 yes.
Osman Ajpar.
Mr.
Speaker,
may I be given the 1 minute
Yes, you have all the time.
explanation to my vote?
You're recognized.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to this parliament. Since year one of this parliament, I've been part and privileged to be part of the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management. And I personally witnessed how severe and thorough deliberations of this budget. But somehow, of course, I am privileged, but my only hugot is we opened the plenary deliberation of this budget, and somehow I hope in the next year deliberation we will somehow give space to some of those non-member members of this parliament, non-committee members of this parliament, to suggest some leeways in the budget. Yes, I avoid standing because I am part of the committee, but somehow I beg to disagree in the conduct of deliberation, that while we are allowing everyone to be part in the discussion in the plenary, but somehow we are not allowing anymore additions or requests by any members of the parliament. But because this is a budget for the entire Bangsamoro, and this representation have done its part and equitably spreading out all over the territory of the Bangsamoro. And of course, my appreciation to the statesmanly and calmly presiding of the committee by our chairman. And we are appreciating much that kind of
respect to each and every one of us in the committee, I hereby give my resounding yes to this budget. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Oyo Chief Fahani. Otto Basir. Yakob Muhammad. Yes. No. No abstention, no negative.
The Secretary General.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we have now the result of the nominal voting on the final and third reading of the BTA Bill number 54. We have total votes of yes with 0 no votes and 0 abstain votes.
How many yes?
44 yes votes, Mr. Speaker.
With the vote of 44 members of the Parliament, the BTA Parliament Bill number 54 entitled an act appropriating funds for the operation of the Bangsamoro government from January 1 to December 31, 2023 and for other purposes in the amount of 85,359,315,687 pesos is now approved on third and final reading by this Parliament body.
Mr. Speaker, there being no other item in the agenda, I move for the adjournment of today's session until tomorrow 1 p.m.
The session for the session is now adjourned until tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.